You've seen them 1,000 times. Bright, colorful balls, strung along power lines like oversized Christmas ornaments. Orange, red, sometimes white or yellow, perfectly spaced, quietly hanging against the sky. Most people glance up, notice them for a second, and move on. But they shouldn't. Because those balls exist for one terrifying reason. People died. And the story of how they got there involves a terrified governor, an invisible killer, and a tragic helicopter crash that changed aviation safety forever. Let's start with what you're actually looking at. From the ground, those balls seem small. Maybe the size of a basketball, maybe a softball. Your brain does the math, estimates the scale, and moves on. Your brain is wrong. The largest of those spheres measures over 90 centimeters in diameter, nearly 3 feet across. Some weigh over 5 kilograms. They're not delicate plastic ornaments. They're heavy-duty, UV-resistant fiberglass shells, bolted directly onto high-voltage cables that carry enough electricity to power entire cities. Installing them is a massive mission. Linesmen work at extreme heights, sometimes dangling from helicopters themselves, clamping each sphere onto cables that are completely uninsulated. That's a detail worth pausing on. The high-voltage lines you see stretching across the countryside carry no protective coating, no rubber sleeve, no shielding. They are bare metal, humming with tens of thousands of volts, completely exposed to the open air. If you were to touch one while grounded, you wouldn't just be electrocuted, you would be vaporized. Why? Because insulation at that voltage would be impossibly heavy and expensive, and under normal conditions, nothing touches those cables. They hang far above the ground, far from buildings, far from trees, far from everything, except aircraft. The story of these markers begins in the 1950s, in the state of Arkansas. Winthrop Rockefeller was not yet governor, but he was already a powerful man, wealthy, politically connected, and accustomed to flying in small aircraft across the rural South. On one flight, his plane began its descent toward a small airstrip. The approach was routine, the weather was clear, and then Rockefeller looked out the window. There, just meters from the wing of his plane, a set of high-voltage cables sliced across the flight path. Close enough to see the individual strands of wire, close enough to feel the static hum in his teeth. A single brush of contact, wing to wire, and the plane would have become a fireball before it ever touched the runway. Rockefeller became obsessed with a simple question. Why can't pilots see these cables? The answer is terrifying. Thin metallic wire, strung against an open sky, is virtually invisible from the air. On overcast days, it blends into the gray. On bright days, it vanishes in the glare. Rockefeller pushed for a solution: brightly colored marker balls, large enough to be seen from altitude, vivid enough to turn invisible wires into something a pilot's eye could actually catch. Arkansas adopted them. A few neighboring states followed, but the rest of the country didn't listen. Not yet. It would take blood to change that. Colorado, 1988. A KCNC-TV Channel 4 news helicopter lifts off over the South Platte River. On board are the pilot and 2 broadcast journalists. It's a routine flight, low altitude, following the river corridor. Below them, the terrain shifts. The visibility seems fine. What none of them see is a single thin cable, stretched 45 meters above the river, almost perfectly camouflaged against the landscape below. There are no markers, no warnings, just bare wire. The helicopter strikes the cable. Both journalists are killed. The aftermath of the crash forced a reckoning that was long overdue. Investigators confirmed what pilots had been saying for years. Cables are deceptive. Dirty windshields scatter the light. Changing terrain throws off depth perception. Optical illusions can make a wire look 50 meters away when it's actually 5. After the Colorado crash, regulations tightened. Marker ball programs expanded across North America. The colored spheres that Rockefeller had championed were no longer optional. They were mandatory. Once aviation authorities committed to the system, the engineering got serious. The balls are generally spaced 60 meters apart, but near airports, they are clustered tighter, acting like an aerial traffic sign telling pilots, "The runway ends here, adjust now." And then there's color. Originally, every marker ball was red. It seemed intuitive. Red means danger. But research revealed a fatal flaw. Red fades into murky backgrounds in low light. At dawn and dusk, it's useless. Orange proved far superior. It cuts through haze and stands out against blue skies and green forests. But even orange has a weakness. In the rust-colored canyons of the American Southwest, an orange ball vanishes. So regulations were rewritten with a principle. Choose whatever contrasts most with the environment. Red over green forests, white over dark canyons, yellow against gray urban skylines. Every detail is deliberate, and every reason traces back to the same root. Someone, somewhere, didn't see the wire in time. Here's what's truly remarkable about these spheres. They were designed to save pilots, but the benefits didn't stop at aviation. Migratory birds, like geese and swans, began colliding with cables less frequently. The balls break up the visual monotony of the wire, giving birds a chance to avoid the obstacle. Captains of tall vessels navigating inland waterways reported the same advantage, using the markers as early warning systems on the river. A solution designed for one danger quietly became a guardian against several. So the next time you look up and see those colorful spheres dotting a power line, know this. You're not looking at decoration. You're looking at a scar, a lesson, a correction written into the infrastructure itself. Every one of those balls hangs where it hangs because someone realized, through terror and through tragedy, that a wire no one could see was a wire that could kill. They are small, bright, and easy to overlook, which is exactly the opposite of what they were built to be. If this story changed the way you see the world around you, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments, what's a piece of everyday infrastructure you pass all the time but have no idea what it actually does? We might cover it next.